It has become a big national story. We've had things that have been thrown into hoops like racism and just different things thrown to players that shouldn't even been brought up. This is a game I love. This is a game I'm passionate about. And at the end of the day, I'm thankful that I'm able to display it to everybody. And if you're going to watch the game, watch all of the game before you make opinions. Just watch the whole game and get to know the players. Those that saying you don't know players, you haven't watched the WNBA. Get to know your players that are already here and already in this league and already trying to make a mark.
Did you, the chippiness that was going on before, because that was there, do you have any, was there before that?
No. I think I got hit in the head the play before, and it was just like one of those things that was in the heat of the moment. You know, I don't know Kaylin. I don't know her from anywhere. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, this is hoops. It's competitive, and this is basketball. And you're playing against somebody like me. I classify myself as a dog. So if you're gonna throw a punch, then I'm gonna compete with you. I'm gonna play at the level that you're given. So that's just a player that I am.
I've been watching the WNBA for a very long time. My teammates have shared experiences where they have gotten their nose broken.
Yeah.
Like, this has been going on for a long time.
I've had an experience where Alyssa Thomas has actually chipped one of my ankle, and you know, we're cool to this day. Like
it's competitive, bro.
Yeah, man. Like,
you can't pick and choose like who can get touched and who can't get touched.
Who can't?
Everybody can get touched.
Yeah,
like,
including me. Any day I can get touched as well, but I'm gonna make sure that I'm always gonna bring it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it was kind of what Cheryl said. Your play was like, you guys are fighting for a rebound. We expect, you know what I mean? That kind of it. Not what happened to you.
Okay.
It was different. And I think yours was off. It was a little bit like off the ball. You know what I mean?
It was just like the next possession, honestly.
Right. Okay.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Did you see when JJ knocked me down?
No, you know what? I missed that one.
Oh, you go check the film. JJ knocked me down. She didn't get a flagrant one though.
Yeah.
She got a regular foul, but it was the same thing.
Right.
It was the same thing.
Yeah.
But we can't pick and choose what players get flagrant fouls and flagrant ones and twos.
100%. I
Okay.
was just trying to bring. Like,
But no, go check the clip. It's the same. All right. Go Sky.
Go check the clip. Go check the tape.
Oh my God.
Callie Lawson-Freeman. You know, I will look forward to the day that you join me for a discussion and we could just talk about the game that's played on the court. But that day, unfortunately, Callie, is not today. It's not today. So let's get into it because there's so much to unpack. But that was Chennedy Carter and Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky. And that was yesterday, I believe. So that's about 2 days, I think, since the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever played each other and the foul heard around the world happened. And, you know, it was, if you were not up to date, I don't know how anyone cannot be, but during the game, Chennedy Carter fouled Caitlin Clark, and you know, people are like, it's a cheap shot. Sure, yes, it is. It was a dead ball. Caitlin Clark was trying to inbound, and Chennedy Carter like rolls over there and, you know, gives her a little shoulder, a little hip check, right? This is basketball. That's what it was. And I'm saying it's a little hip check because we'll get into this, but I just think this is just too much commotion over what actually transpired in the game.
Exactly.
It was just assessed as a regular foul. And so they played on, but it wasn't a flagrant, it wasn't reviewed. And so I think Caitlin was calling for the review, asking for it, rightfully so. And it was not. And so the Indiana Fever still won that game. They won by 1 point. But at that point, once that foul occurred, then that's it. All the conversation was about that foul. That foul is being talked about on MSNBC and CNN, right? And I'm just like, what? Like, this is crazy for a hip check. And so, you know, not shown in that video. I mean, Chennedy sort of made that point. I wish I could have just played back the whole presser. I really encourage people to go back and listen.
It's very funny, but there are also some good points being made.
It's telling, right? And I mean, the fact that like they made it a point to make it clear that what Angel Reese, the foul that she experienced from Alyssa Thomas a few games back when they played the Connecticut Sun, and Alyssa was assessed a flagrant foul too for that, was much worse. And that kind of reaction didn't happen. And the reporter, the media who was there asking questions were like, well, maybe it's because like that was assessed in the moment.
She was like, well, I got another one. How about Jonquel? How about that one? So
Go back
yeah,
and look. Go look at the tape.
Yeah.
And people did. They pulled up the tape. This is why I love Twitter. I don't like Twitter at times, but I love them when they do this because they went and they pulled up the tape. And they got that video floating. And we can pull up lots of examples. But even if it was assessed in real time, I don't really think the reaction would have been different, right? I think it would have still been the same conversation because we've been having conversations about the physicality because of a Breanna Stewart screen, right? So I don't really think this is about whether it was assessed in real time or not. I think it's about how people are reacting to the physicality of the WNBA and how it affects Caitlin Clark. And I think that's why we're talking about it, because otherwise, if it's any other player, we're not talking about it. And so that's sort of what leads us to this point. So Callie, talk to me. What is your just reaction to what transpired in the game and then the aftermath of it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest. I was watching that game because to me, that's appointment viewing. I'm like, we got Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese on the same court again, and Camila Cardoso. This, like, I'm not going to miss it. So I'm going to be honest. I'm watching that. I saw the play, and I'm like, they still got a whole fourth quarter to play. This is not, I honestly didn't think it was going to be that serious. And that's like my naivete clearly on display because it's been hysterical since then. I mean, even now, we're, I think, 3 days removed from that happening, and Twitter is still in a blaze. Like, you mentioned CNN, you mentioned MSNBC, you also have like reputable newspapers writing columns referring to this incident that happened on a court as an assault. Like, we have people like in
Chicago
the conversation.
Tribune, call them out.
Right.
Chicago Tribune. Editorial
right. I mean, and that's a very reputable newspaper. So to me, that's absurd. The conversation has jumped the shark. Like, if we're getting to the point where we're going, if you did this in front of a police officer, would that be considered like, no, we've lost the plot at this point? Like, people are not understanding. Rebecca Lobo actually tweeted earlier today that there were 67 flagrant fouls in the WNBA last season. That means that there were plays worse than the one that happened to Caitlin Clark on a very frequent basis in the WNBA last season. That is the nature of this game. And so I think what Angel said, I don't know if she meant for it to be like this poignant, but her saying like, I've watched the WNBA for a very long time, I think makes a big difference because she knows what she's getting into. She knows what she's dealing with. She also has like some regional like expertise with Alyssa Thomas. They have like that Maryland background and stuff like that. So she knew what she was getting involved with when she's on the court with Alyssa Thomas and things like that. But she also knows that from her experience watching the league. And so I think that when we have people chiming in, as Chennedy noted, and they're making up things. Like, you can look at so many tweets and be like, you just made that up. Like, you just made that up. And it's because they didn't watch the game. They haven't watched the game and they don't know what's going on. I just think all of the hysterics surrounding it, like, we don't need to debate this. It's blindside, cheap shot, whatever. She's fine. And I'm not trying to downplay it. What Kenny did was absolutely wrong. She should not have done that. And we're going to get into later about how, like, also you got to know who you're messing with. Chennedy and Caitlin were chirping, and Caitlin elbowed Chennedy in the head. So it's like, something was bound to happen. Now, it's not good to retaliate. That's why the play was upgraded to a flagrant, which I don't know if I would have. I mean, no, that was a flagrant for sure. That was a flagrant for sure. But I don't know if that would have happened if Christy Sides and the GM of the Fever didn't come out and like complain at the level that they did. And
they were on Twitter. Christy Sides, the coach, she tweeted.
Yeah.
And then the GM of the Fever, he also tweeted. And like, guys, you have PR staff for this. You have comms people for this. We don't need the head coach and the GM tweeting. And people may not understand why we're saying that's problematic, but it's problematic because you're one, Christy, and I get it, you do have to advocate for your players, and coaches do that all the time, but you do it by what you were already doing, which is sending film to the league and you address it in a post game. And sometimes you even do it in game and you get the text. You don't go out and say, this is unacceptable and tag the league. When will the consistent complaints be heard? Something has to be done. Because for one, you're making this sound like something abnormal is happening, right? You're making it sound like something different is happening than what normally happens. And so now you're feeding into a narrative that has been dangerous already around the player on your team. That's one. But the second thing, this is how you create division in a locker room. This is not good precedent for culture, because Aaliyah Boston is not officiated fairly. And that was something when she was in college, Dawn Staley always spoke about and was very hopeful that when she came to the league, it would get better. And you have not stood on business in this way for Aaliyah Boston. You have not done that. You haven't spoken up like this for any other player, right? Wasn't Jonquel Jones just all in Aaliyah's face the other day? Wasn't she being rough with her? So you can speak. And I need to remind people, because I feel like people think she's some veteran. I understand that when you're a tall player, people seem to not think of you a certain way. I think it's about some other things. But like, Aaliyah Boston is one of the sweetest, most gentle, kindest people in the world, okay? And I'm not saying she's soft, but I'm just saying, just because she's a tall girl who's over 6 feet doesn't mean that she doesn't need protecting. And she's
also in her second year in the league.
Gonna be my second point. She's only in her second year. She's not some seasoned veteran. So we don't need to just look out for Caitlin. You need to also, in addition to Caitlin, look out for Aaliyah Boston. So you get on and make this grandstand, and that, aside from rubbing fans and people the wrong way, that doesn't send the right message to the locker room.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of sending a message, the overall message that we can all take from this is that there are ways to discuss the WNBA, right? And so when people want to call Chennedy a dirty player and all this stuff, it's like that's not conducive to anything. Like, Chennedy has her own journey and her own experience in the W, which has been a really interesting one at that. Like, I think a lot of people forget, she was the 4th overall pick in the 2020 WNBA draft. And then just as recently as right before the season, she was not in the league. She was playing overseas. And this is like a top, that's a lottery pick. Like, you are a top caliber player. And in your rookie year, you're averaging 17 points per game for the Atlanta Dream. Like, this is not just some random player. Like, Chennedy, for all intents and purposes, like, she has all the skill to be a star. Like, there are other things that play into her experience, right? Like, she was waived. There were some locker room problems. I don't know, like, how much you want to get into that, but it's like, that's not a reason to go and say, wow, the WNBA in general is so dirty and all this. Like, that to me doesn't even make sense as a descriptor for Chennedy, genuinely. So I don't understand why it's like a descriptor for the whole league now. And it's like, this is a league of majority Black women, and we're gonna call them jealous and aggressive, and they hate Caitlin because she's white. Like, that's the narrative, and it's just absurd.